Welcome to Kerah Speaks, where the truth runs deep. Faithful, healed, and free. Real talk, real growth. Let the Spirit speak. Stories that set you free. Becoming who you're meant to be. Welcome to the conversation. Kerah Speaks.
What's up, everybody? Before we even get into today's episode, I just want to say thank you to everybody who has been supporting Kerah Speaks. The platform has been growing because of y'all, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, and really engaging in the conversation that we have been having over here. I want to thank my guests that I've had on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm going to keep this calling series going because I'm really enjoying it. I think you guys are really going to enjoy the next guest that I have coming. We are officially on the road to 500 subscribers on YouTube. So if you have been watching the videos and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure that you go and follow, okay? Follow the podcast, help us contribute to what we are building over here in this community, and let's continue to have these conversations. Also, the new merch is available. It's officially available on kerahspeaks.com, and we have the Faithful, Healed, and Free collection that's available, along with the new pieces that really represents healing, growth, and authenticity, just becoming who you meant to be. So if you want to support the brand, support the message, and support the movement, head over to kerahspeaks.com and check it out, as well as my new book, Healing Cost Me Everything. You ever lost anybody? Lost a friend? Lost a relationship? Lost somebody due to death? Grief is grief, no matter what you lost. This talks about what healing cost me in the midst of what I lost, losing a friendship, losing myself, and how I got it all back through my faith. And this brand, Faithful, Healed, and Free, is about what I gained through the grief and the loss of all of those things. So, if you want to go ahead and support that and get that because it resonates with you, go ahead and check it out on kerahspeaks.com. So let's go ahead and get into the episode for today. So I want to talk about microaggressions and friendships, female friendships to be specific. I saw somebody talk about how hard it is to be friends with women because of a lot of women have a hard time making friends because of just how women are. And so many women go through friendship breakup after friendship breakup after friendship breakup. And they end up being on the outside looking in. And sometimes they can be seen as the common denominator. It looks like you're the problem in every situation. But I have seen a lot of Black women choose not to make friends because it is hard. Some people are fake, performative, and sometimes just downright mean girls. And sometimes it's none of it. Sometimes it's, friendship just don't work because of the personality. I've seen and heard women say over and over that they don't like making female friends, and I don't like that. I don't like that saying. But before we really get into it, I do want to say this. Let me say this. This is not an episode for men and male-suited women to punch down on women. This is not what this is. Women experience an immense amount of harm from men in ways that are rooted in power, violence, emotional immaturity, and quite frankly, just lack of character development and lack of spiritual and emotional growth. So that's a separate conversation. This conversation is about accountability within female friendships and the ways that we can unintentionally and intentionally hurt one another emotionally. There is a deep and psychological dark side to female friendships that I don't think people talk about enough because I don't think that there is a safe space to talk about it. I think that a lot of women are or feel shame to talk about the dark side of female friendship. One of the most psychologically damaging things that I think exists in certain female friendships is how crazy you start to feel when you finally address an issue, especially because the other person acts like there was never a problem to begin with, right? And now you feel like you're tripping, and you feel that tension. You start to feel the distance, the weird energy shifts, because you know for a fact that something is wrong. So when you do finally try to communicate, the person acts confused or act like, you just imagined the whole thing. And over time, that can really make you question yourself, your intuition, your discernment, and even your reality sometimes. And that affects you so much mentally. There are women who are extremely good at manipulating people and lying about who they really are emotionally. Again, like I told you, this is not to throw off on women and punch down on women, but we got to be honest. Over here on Kerah Speaks, we have real and honest conversations. And in order for us to grow, we have to talk about these real things. And we have to talk about the manipulation that sometimes the manipulative behaviors that women will exhibit in friendship, not always because they're evil. I believe that a lot of women are just deeply wounded, and they're void, and they're just disconnected from themselves. And these type of friendships with people like that, it can be very dangerous emotionally for people who are genuinely looking for friendship and who genuinely value deep friendships and emotional honesty, because you are entering the friendship believing that you're trying to build something real, you know. Meanwhile, the other person on the other end, they just might be mirroring you. They pretend that they got your same emotional depth. Like they mirror your vulnerability. They mirror how you communicate. They pretend to have the same values as you. And I personally believe that that can become very emotionally harmful, whether it's intentional or unintentional, because while one person believes that intimacy is genuinely being built, the other person is performing closeness, the illusion of closeness. So naturally, over time, when you start to ask for reciprocity, because that's what happens when you start getting close to people, you start to ask for what you need, you start communicating, you start, being honest about what you feel. Then comes accountability. You're trying to build a deeper connection, and then the rug gets pulled from you, because all of a sudden the other person said, well, I don't have the capacity, or I don't want this type of friendship. All of a sudden they're just emotionally unavailable, but the whole time they were mirroring the behavior and pretending to be what you needed. So now in your mind the friendship feels one-sided. You know what I'm saying? And that's the dark side of it. And that type of emotional whiplash is hard to process because the closeness felt real to you. That's why the hurt a female friendship could take such a long time to get over, because it's not just about losing the person. It's not about losing the person. It's about how you lost yourself. You're grieving the connection you thought you had. You're grieving the emotional safety that may not have ever existed. You're For me, I can say that I was grieving the version of myself in that friendship that I was. I was grieving the version of friendship that I thought was real. That's something I really had to unpack in therapy. That it took me months to get over. I talked about it incessantly over and over, just trying to process, because it doesn't make sense when something ends that you thought was real. And honestly, I think there are a lot of women who are still unknowingly carrying the remnants of friendship from a heartbreak years ago. Years ago. Some of you might be listening right now who don't even realize that you're still carrying the weight of a friendship that meant a lot to you. But because we tend to sweep things on the rug and we don't hold our female friendships in this high regard as we do romantic relationships, we think it doesn't affect us as much. I think romantic relationships, they affect us. But those female friendships, that's some deep rooted hurt that we carry. Women are still subconsciously choosing emotionally unavailable friends. They're still choosing performative friends, still choosing people who can't meet their emotional needs. And because these wounds were never fully addressed, because we never, you know, excavated that hurt to allow it to heal, the same patterns keep repeating themselves over and over and over in friendship. So from the outside, it can look like, oh well, she fall out with everybody. That girl, she can't never keep no friends. She is the common denominator. Everybody else cool. Why she the one that can't keep no friends? But see, sometimes what's actually happening is unresolved friendship trauma mixed with unhealthy friendship patterns and people's inability to identify emotionally safe people. Because that was my thing. Just because people mirror my behavior or pretended to be something that they were not, it was my responsibility to have discernment. It was my responsibility to identify, is this person safe or not? But the only way I would be able to identify is if they were safe, if I knew what I needed at my core. If I was able to identify what it is that Kara needs in this friendship, what do I need to see consistently to know that this person is safe? I think, these conversations and space, I think it deserves more compassion, and we deserve more honest conversations than we currently give it. This episode isn't women are the problem. Okay. I don't like that trope. I don't like that. Oh, I can't be friends with women. I don't subscribe to that, because this is not about not wanting female friendship. This is about no longer tolerating harm just because people are close to you. What I want to name today is about something that's a little more specific and more honest about female friendship. I'm talking about the quiet harm that happens inside of that closeness of female friendships, the kind that doesn't always look obvious or that's not loud. So it's harder to call it out, but it stays with you longer and it hurts more because the wound is deeper. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to talk about this as if I'm above it all. This episode serves as a moment of reflection and accountability. I think we all have similar experiences in female friendships. When you think about all of your friendships that have ended and your own personal female friendships, I think most of us can say it wasn't just the breakup that hurt. It was about the erosion that happens before that. I'm talking about the micro aggressions, the backhanded compliments, that don't register until you by yourself. Until you had some time to think about, like, was that shade? Did they say what I think they said? What did they mean by that? The subtle competition, the being studied instead of understood. They study how you do your hair, how you talk, how you walk, how you think, how you dress. All of those things they are studying about you instead of knowing you. The subtle tone shifts that feel off, but you can't prove it. You know what I'm saying? The lack of repair, especially when it matters. I think that, you let when in female friendships, a lot of times we let stuff go. We sweep stuff under the rug and we let so much time goes by until everything had just piled up. And now when you have conflict, you throwing everything at them. And now they feeling like this is coming out of nowhere, when the whole time, because you didn't repair it, or you didn't address it head on, now everything is just piled up and now you have to address it. Stuff like that, it doesn't just happen all at once. It's like a slow burn, and a slow burn leaves you not only questioning the friendship, but it also leaves you questioning yourself, because the whole time you're trying to figure out, should I stay, should I leave? Those subtle slights don't feel like enough to immediately leave. So you stay and you keep trying to find reasons to stay, but at the same time, you're slowly disconnecting from the friendship because something just doesn't feel right. That's why friendship breakups hurt so deeply, in my opinion, because by the time that the rupture finally happens, your nervous system has already been carrying the weight of the friendship for so long. That's the psychology piece of female friendships that I find so fascinating. Our connection to one another isn't random, right? It is a learned behavior. Before we even meet each other, we have had these behaviors that we have been practicing and repeating over and over, and we sometimes don't even realize that we're hurting people. And then sometimes we do, because hurt people hurt people. And I don't want to sit here like I've never had the capacity to hurt people, because I've hurt people too. I have. There have been moments where I knew exactly what to say to hurt somebody, because when you know people deeply enough, you know where their soft spots are. You know what's going to hurt them. But one thing that I have always tried very hard not to do is to hit below the belt in friendships. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in hitting below the belt. There has never been a time that I have been so angry at a person that I am going to hit them where it hurts. Not nobody that I seriously, honestly cared about. Have I hit below the belt? Yes. But I didn't necessarily consider them a close friend. Was that still wrong? Yes, it was. But when it's somebody that I love, that I'm close to, I don't hit anybody below the belt. That's why I can always have a conversation, especially when there is conflict, and I can get mad and I know that I'm not going to hit below the belt. I always question when people say, let me leave this conversation before I say something that I'm going to regret. My thing is, why is that so close to your lips and so close to your heart to want to say something that's going to hit somebody you claim to love below the belt? But that's a whole nother topic. But I think, you know, becoming more aware of yourself and becoming more aware of the subtle harm has forced me to look at myself differently. It made me ask myself, um, how have I contributed to unhealthy dynamics and friendships? Have I communicated my needs clearly? Because that was a really big thing for me. I did not communicate clearly. I asked myself if there have been moments where I've been passive aggressive, and hell yes, hell yes. My toxic trait is that I can be very passive aggressive. I am aware at how that comes off. A lot of times I'm just trying to regulate, so sometimes I just shut down. There have been moments where I have withheld my honesty and my true feelings about a situation. I say, it's no big deal. Okay, no problem. And then later on, I'm bringing it up as an issue when before I said it was no problem. So it all comes back to, communicating. There were moments where I have projected my own wounds onto people. I still do sometimes, but what I am thankful for now is that I am able to catch that behavior in real time. Because if I want to if I want better friendships, then I have to be a better friend. And I think that healing has made me more intentional in friendships. I don't want surface level friendships anymore. I don't want performative closeness. I don't want the illusion of closeness. I don't want friendship that is built on comparison, gossip, competition, and emotional dishonesty. I want a real sisterhood, the kind where the women in the friendship feel emotionally safe to one another. We can communicate honestly. We can hold ourselves accountable and hold each other accountable without feeling humiliated. I want friends who apologize. Saying I'm sorry is where emotional maturity exists. Everybody grown, but don't nobody want to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. That's really what be killing a lot of friendships, in my opinion. Ego. Your ego has to die if you want to grow personally and if you want to grow in your friendships. And speaking of growth, I want the kind of friendship where growth is mutual, because if only one person is growing, then that is going to create distance in a friendship. Okay. And where there is distance, that's when somebody is going to outgrow somebody. Okay. And understanding all of these things, it takes a high level of self-awareness and discernment. And I also want to add that discernment that comes with faith. I want friendships who lean on their faith first. That's important. We might not believe the same way. We might not practice whatever the same. You might call them something different. But I want you to go to your faith when it comes to me. You know what I'm saying? I want you to say, how am I doing things that honors the Father in this friendship? Or am I doing something that honors my ego? Because with the death of an ego, it comes humility. And humility only comes from surrendering yourself to the Holy Spirit first. If you surrender yourself to the Holy Spirit, everything else around you will manifest in your platonic and romantic relationships. The Holy Spirit will tell you what to do, what is right, what is wrong. And I want that to be able to guide my friend when we might have an issue, or even when we don't have an issue, just to make sure that we are showing up for one another in the way that is righteous. We are going to offend each other, but as long as we say, I apologize, I'm sorry, or if you don't even say I'm sorry, correct the behavior. Show that you love me, show that you care about me through your faith. I want my friends to have a really strong sense of faith, because that will guide them in the friendship. And, I'm going to lean on my faith too. I want to pray about that thing. I want to pray about the friendship prior to getting in the friendship. I want to make sure that I am clear on what it is that I need in a friendship and what it is that they need. I want us to have a mutual understanding. And that comes from praying for discernment, praying for clarity. Because I think that as Black women, we deserve a deeper and healthier and safer friendship with one another. I think the more honest we become about the subtle ways that we hurt each other, the better chance we have to create the kind of sisterhood that we say we all want. We all we got. We all we got. Black women don't have no allies. I don't care what nobody say. We don't have no allies. The only allies we have are each other. So if you have a friend that you love deeply, and you feel some resentment building, I want you to check in with yourself and have that conversation before it's too late. Be honest about your feelings. Don't hold on to grudges and silently throw that weight around and wait on to your friendship until there's nothing left to save. And if you currently going through a season where you had to walk away from everybody and there ain't no closure need to be had, ain't no more conversation you need to be had, you've already done the healing, you've already done the work, you've gone to therapy, you've done what you need to do to heal. I want you to do some emotional inventory, identify your core needs, figure out what it is that you want going into your next friendship, and I want you to stand on that. Stand on it. Don't turn back. You left those friendships for a reason. They weren't aligned with you. Okay. The person you are today probably would not have chosen those old friends. You know what I'm saying? Or even if you would have chosen it, you probably wouldn't have got as close to them as you did. So you're a different person today. So I want you to stand on what you need and go after that. Think about how you wish you would have shown up too. Think about the decisions that you made that you would have made differently now, not to ruminate on it and not to shame yourself, but to course correct for the next friendship. And I also want you to understand this. The people that you might have left behind or that you've moved on from, because I don't want to say left behind. Everybody's on their own journey. Nobody is ahead of or behind. We're all on separate journeys. Okay. So the people that you've had to move on from, those people don't need to be horrible people in order for you to know that you made the right decision for yourself. Okay. You don't have to villainize people in order to outgrow certain dynamics. I think that's what a lot of people do sometimes. We have to find the right or wrong in a relationship in order to find closure or in order to get over it. We have to create a narrative in our mind that this person did me wrong, instead of saying, you know what, they showed up in a certain way, I showed up in a certain way that wasn't conducive to having a healthy friendship. And that's just that. Sometimes nobody is necessarily a bad person. A lot of women in friendships, a lot of us are wounded. A lot of women are emotionally immature, and some women just simply do not have the capacity to meet you where you are. And that doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them evil. It just means that the connection is no longer healthy for you. And at the end of the day, you pray for your community, pray for your sisters, pray for yourself, because healthy sisterhoods matter, but a healthy you matters too. That's the only way we can have a healthy sisterhood. And I think a lot of women are really just trying to learn how to love each other better, while we're also learning how to love ourselves. So that's all I have for this episode of Kerah Speaks. Make sure that you follow and subscribe. We are on the road to 500 subscribers. I would really appreciate it. And I thank you all for watching and listening, and I'll see y'all next time. Follow this podcast and connect with me at kerahspeaks.com and subscribe to my YouTube channel at Kerah Speaks.